Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Addicts Advocate. I'm your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to introduce Matt. Matt's over on the East Coast, and it's kind of nice, the power of the internet. I'm out here on the West Coast, and him and I connected through the power of social media. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey Dusty, how you doing? Yeah, it was interesting how we got connected just through Instagram, and then if anyone had just recently seen Julie on this interview, I'm friends with Julie, so Julie pointed me to Dusty, reached out to Instagram, and a couple clicks, and we're good to go.
Good deal, good deal. Well, I don't know much about your story, so I'm definitely fascinated. I typically like to get this party started, this conversation going. So tell me, what happened in life? What's the backstory with you? How did you become, to a point of recognizing you had an addiction, and what leads you to go seek recovery?
So, through my recovery, I've learned a lot more about just addiction through recovery. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 42. I got the good Irish skin. Some people think I'm like in my late 30s, which I'll take at any day of the week. Addiction runs in my family. Both my grandfathers had addiction problems. As you can see, I'm red hair, blue eyes, so I'm Irish. So that's I don't want to blame it on anything like that, but it was just the growing up. That's what I saw. You know what I mean? It looked like you made it when when you come home and have a drink. It just seemed like a celebratory thing. Like, people around me drank casually. There was really no, from my mother and father always there for me. I had a great family life. It's funny if you're around my age, you can remember there was a commercial, and I joke about this all the time, where it's like, kids who eat dinner with their parents are, like 80% less to struggle with drugs and alcohol. And I'm like, Mom, you broke that one, like, because I had dinner every night with my family. I mean, every single night. You know, um, my father he owned a construction company. He was put himself through college, put himself, very hardworking man. Worked his way up the company, and then my mom she was a school teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher, seventh grade teacher and kindergarten teacher. She's K through 8. So I never wanted for anything, honestly, growing up. But the one thing, like, my parents instilled in me, like, my parents didn't have a lot growing up. You know what I mean? Like, anything they got, they worked for. So they had a strong work ethic. And I started working, at a young age. I want to say like 11, 12, but that was like, grammar school stuff. Like, I worked basketball games, stuff like that. But, my parents were always like, if you want it, you got to work for it. So that's what it was. And but the thing was, I also joke about this too, that, like, in my family, I felt like the redheaded stepchild in a family full of redheads. I just never felt part of. And I talk about that dinner every night we had. Like, I felt like I was never good enough. That was my main thing. I was never going to be good enough. But my family didn't make me feel like that. They were always there for me. My mom was always there. My dad was always there. It was just like, I just never talked about it. You know what I mean? I just like anybody who, you've probably interviewed thousands of us, we're chameleons. We can fit in with anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I was friends with everyone, but no one knew me. You know what I mean? I played sports. I was friends with the troublemakers. I was friends with the potheads, the drinkers, anybody. I knew everybody. Everybody knew me, but nobody knew me. You know what I mean? And that was my secret. Nobody knew me because I knew me and I hated me. So, like, I can remember I was, 16 in my parents' basement, had a couple friends over, and went into the bar downstairs and looked for the liquor with the dust on it. You know what I mean? Because it hasn't been touched. And I remember it was Old Granddad. It was a whiskey, and it was god awful. It was I can taste it now, one of the worst tastes I've ever had in my life. But you know what? I felt good enough at that. I can, anytime I talk about it, I go back to that. And I felt like this is what I'm looking for. That's why I understand why people drank a lot, because I felt like, hey, you know what? I can have a conversation with you, and I can talk with you, and I can do this, and I can do that. You know what I mean? And I chased that. I chased that. I started drinking at 16. But it was the high school stuff. It wasn't like, you would go out on weekends. But I learned through recovery that like I was a blackout drinker from the beginning. I didn't know what a blackout was until I went to rehab. I just thought it was a good night. You know what I mean? Like when people told me what I did, I was like, oh, I mean, come on, who doesn't do that? I drank beer, but I really didn't drink beer. I was like a hard alcohol guy. I did that, and that's what my thing was. Like I never felt good enough, but with that one terrible drink of Canadian whiskey, I felt good enough, and I chased that. And I didnn't know, and it's no fault of my parents, no fault of I went to great schools, no fault of anyone around me that like I just didn't know how to express myself. You know what I mean? I just didn't know how to ask for help. And I looked for all my answers in alcohol. You know, high school was my junior year. High school was tough, honestly. I can still remember to this day. I don't remember what happened first, but I know they happened like in back-to-back months. One of my friends died. We were teen, and he was born with a defect in the heart, and so it was no like it was just he was actually with the condition he was born with at the time in 2000. Well, that was 99. He was the longest to ever live with that condition. It was a defect of the heart. And I'll come back to him in a little bit once I get down the line. And then one of my good friends who I grew up with, I went to grammar school and high school with, we played sports together. Like me and him were cool. His dad died. And that was like my first, like, whoa, like this isn't supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Then, my friend's dad was probably in his late 40s, early 50s, and I knew him. He was a baseball coach, like he actually, it's funny now that they do all this, like, so this is in the 90s, and like growing up with him, this guy, he was such a mathematician that like all the stuff they're doing in Major League Baseball now with like the launch angle and this and that, he was doing back then in the 90s. The guy was a genius. Like, I don't know how he did it, but that was like, and for me, I didn't know how to express that pain and that hey, not that this isn't supposed to happen, but this isn't supposed to happen. You know what I mean? And I drank, I drank and just didn't deal with it. I dealt with it later on. But that was a tough spot for me, and that's really where like my addiction kind of took off, kind of, you know what I mean? Like started drinking more. I got into trouble more in high school. I almost got thrown out of high school. I went to a private Catholic school, Christian Brothers Academy, where it was a great school. Trust me, I had good grades. It prepared me for college. But I was a little bit of a, I caused a lot of trouble. Let's just say that. And I can remember, and this was another like turning point in kind of my life in the good way. Junior year, I was friends with, because I got in so much trouble, I was friends with the dean of discipline. He took care of me. You know what I mean? So he called me down to his office the last week of junior year, had brought my parents in and was like, listen, I should kick you out. Like, you should be kicked out, but there's a new dean of discipline coming in next year. For some odd reason, everyone here likes you and follows you. You'll make it easier on him if I'm giving you this chance. Like, I'm giving you this chance. Like, don't mess this up because you'll make it easier on him. I want you to make it easier on him, everything like that. So then fast forward, first week of senior year, I get called down. Brother Dan was his name. Awesome guy. He said to me, listen, Matt, if you sneeze wrong, you're gone. You're done. And I had good grades and stuff. I had plans of going to college and stuff like that. So I really didn't want to screw that up. So like my senior year in high school, I kind of turned it around. I drank here and there, but got good grades, stuff like that. And got into a good college. I actually got an academic scholarship to St. Joe's in Philly. And, I joke about this a lot. I read the scholarship wrong. I thought I had to keep above a 3.0 lead alcohol. But it was the GPA, and I just went to college, and it just, I honestly, what I should have done was I should have went to a community college because I couldn't handle I really couldn't handle hey, no one's forcing you to go to class. Hey, no one's telling you can't start drinking on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. You know what I mean? And I just, the only thing I kept above 3.0 was my blood alcohol content, and it's funny too, because like I can laugh about it now. Like I fought a lot and I shouldn't fight. Like I'm not I'm not a good fighter. Like this face hurt a lot of fists, in my day, and that's just who I was. But that brings it back to I didn't like me. So my anger came out when I drank, and I would just pick the biggest guy in the room, start a fight with him, get my ass kicked, and then wonder why is this continuous to happen to me. But in St. Joe's, I did some dumb stuff. Did some dumb stuff in college, But I ended up sophomore year. I technically not considered my sophomore year because I got like 4 credits my freshman year. You know what I mean? But what would have been my sophomore year, I transferred to. I was a business major when I went into college, but I transferred to elementary. And honestly, I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved elementary. I student taught at it was in the heart of Philly. It was funny because like all the kids had never seen I had red hair, freckles. They never saw anyone like me. You know what I mean? So I was like an alien to them. It was like real cool, but I loved it. I fell in love with student teaching, and I ended up getting kicked out of St. Joe's for alcohol violations. But that would have been my path. And if the addiction didn't take off then, getting kicked out and seeing all my friends in school and college, you know what I mean? Like depression runs in my family, so like it just went off. Like I just drank and I did drugs then too. I used cocaine at that point. I started using that in college, and that's a problem because I'm a blackout drinker, and now I'm not going to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, and 2, I don't know how the hell people afford that. That's a rich man's. I only like the smell of it, is what I joke with. But that was a problem because then I came home and I started bartending. And for me, I don't know if anyone's worked in restaurants, but whatever. I worked in restaurants when I was I lived down by the beach. So I'd busboy throughout and about high school and stuff, like bar back throughout high school. And it wasn't a problem then. But as I got older, I saw like there's only 2 type of people who work in restaurants: alcoholics and people in recovery. That's it. Those are the only 2 people who work in restaurants. Like normal drinkers, they're not really there. And that's again another thing that was a jumping off point for my addiction was I found people who, like, when I went to college, I found people who drank and drugged like me and hung out with them. When I came home and was living at home with my parents, really can't say living at home because I was never there. You know what I mean? And then and throughout all this, actually something, going back, because this plays an important role in my recovery. Like growing up, I was raised Catholic, but like I was big into like church, and like I always prayed. Like my spirituality is very important to me growing up, and it talks about, for me, like, step 1 is, men were powerless over addiction, advised to become unmanageable. If you would have told me at 13 that at 17 I was no longer going to believe in a God, to me that's unmanageable, because that was the most important thing in my life. You know what I mean? Like, and at this time, I have the only prayers I'm saying is when the cops lights are on behind me, or, I got a test coming up that I haven't been to class in 3 weeks and I don't know what the hell's going on. So that's something that's very important to me, is that I try to talk about too, is that what my addiction took me from was the most important thing to me growing up was my religion, was my spirituality, and it just straight took it. You know what I mean? Gone. So I'm going on and but when I go back to my my friend who died in high school, I always prayed for him. I always prayed for him, and I always kept him close to me. And I think he kept me out of a lot of things that could have went off a lot worse than it could have been. And sometimes I just like this, I get emotional talking about him, because it's just he's done a hell of a lot more for me than I could ever do for him. But that's pretty much going from there. I don't know if you want to jump in or you just want me to keep going. It's up to you.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we'll get to the recovery side here in a second.
Yeah.
Giving me a lot to unpack. Some eerily similar pathways for myself personally. So, I had a good family life as well. A lot of dinner table conversations, and the drinking, sure, the sneaking in every now and then, right in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is as you talk about this whole this never good enough and this trying to fit in, right? And I think that that's what alcohol does, right? Is it kind of just loses it helps you lose all that social anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
just become happy in your own skin again, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
stop having neurotic thoughts about the peer pressures of school and life, right? Especially as a teenager, it's one of the most probably difficult things for anybody in any phase of their life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, trauma, if you don't know how to process it, right? Losing somebody you care about, and it's watching somebody else lose someone they care about,
Mm-hmm.
back to back, difficult processing, and not being able to grieve properly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's, that can be overwhelming for somebody in any age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've lost a lot of family members suddenly. I've actually lost a daughter back in 2012.
So
And those things, all kind of rock me to a core.
yeah.
And if you don't process it, and you try to basically just use a substance to get yourself to feel better and just to carry on because time waits for no man.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, right? And it's difficult. I am a Catholic high school kid as well. I got caught smoking in the boys' room like a couple of weeks before the end of my junior year. I had to call my mom, and do detention for a week and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I spent my early 20s in restaurants. The thing about it is that the thing about it is there's a culture, right? Because
Yeah.
the time that you're working, right, your friends end up becoming the people that you're working with, and everybody's going to bed, but you guys are getting off work, and it's time to go hit the bar for a few hours or go to
Mm-hmm.
somebody's house, and
Mm-hmm.
it ends up just kind of being what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's definitely themes, that I've found, and again, it's person dependent, right? But addiction doesn't discriminate,
Nah.
right? It really doesn't. I have it genetically in my family, but I never grew up. You know, I think I saw the man who raised me because I was adopted at a very, very young age. The man who raised me, I mean, I saw him drunk one time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, who was my biological mother, she never drank. Um, Not anything that you would ever make you sit there and go, "Wow, she's had too many." Um, I ended up, but my mom's parents were alcoholics. And, she talks about some of the stories growing up, about pulling grandpa off of grandma because he's beating the shit out of her because they're both in drunken rages, and that marriage survived. I have a biological father that my mom basically left when I was just had been born because he was a heroin addict fresh out of Vietnam, and
So
it did lots of things that he was unable to process due to the trauma of war. And so, my biggest thing, one of the things that has helped me because my faith is also now a lot stronger. I mean, I had faith, and then when I basically left Catholic high school, I didn't see any point in it, and I lived my life, and then I also dealt with trauma, but I had a yearning for my spirituality and my Catholicism, later in life, and I'm a very faithful individual. I read
mm-hmm.
scripture every day. I read the mass every day, and it keeps me grounded. And there's a lot of things in our faith that you sit there and you go, wow, he was right. He was right in our lives,
Yeah.
and you sit there
Okay.
and you go, it is a living book. I firmly believe that, and it also kind of helps me disassociate. I'm the label, right? It removes some of the guilt and the shame. I have an addiction disorder, straight up, right? And I found it in many other ways besides just simply weed and alcohol. Those were my two main ones, right? But
Mm-hmm.
addiction can come at you in all these different directions,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you couple, mental health and to me, when we were growing up, right, mental health was the person talking to themselves, walking down the street,
Yep.
or the crazy person, whereas mental health has this massive spectrum, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a blessing because it's destigmatized it, but also helps people find remedies and help them understand who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
Uh, you went through all of this. So backing up, so you basically got kicked out of St. Joe's,
Mm-hmm.
and you were still dealing with your addiction.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to your moment of clarity? What led you to the point of this? I'm done.
So this is it's interesting because well, something that I wanted to talk about too that you just came to my mind, right? When something I'm like so grateful for and I'm very thankful for it is like growing up, my mom, like I said, I went to Catholic schools and stuff like that, but the God I grew up with, wasn't the one who's, you did this wrong, you're going to hell, you're doing this wrong. Like my mom very much instilled to me that like God always loves you and he's always there for you. So like that kind of was like for me, just like, growing up, it was great. And then, I lost that growing up. But and then this is something that like, you always heard God works in mysterious ways, right? So 2000, what should be my senior year of St. Joe's, I'm bartending, really doing nothing with life. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I may have like a couple $100 in my bank account, living home, really no future. Right? But I think I got it made. I think like, dude, I'm bartending. I'm one of the top bars in Belmar, New Jersey. This is amazing. Like, whatever. So I don't know why I came home, but I was home at my parents' house, and I go out to my car, and my car's got a flat tire. And my mom's like, "Here, take my car," which was an Acura MDX. So that was March 2004. I go down, I work, I slept down there, and then because the next day it's the first Sunday of March, which in Belmar, New Jersey, it's an enormous St. Patrick's Day parade. So like St. Patrick's Day and my birthday were 2 days of the year where I could do anything and you can't question it because it's my birthday and it's St. Patrick's Day. you know, so I can't tell you what happens. I go out, stay up all night, whatever. I go to a bar at 7 in the morning. I'm cut off at 7:15. I go to my car. I get dropped off at my car because the bar cut me off and they weren't going to let me leave. But someone who was sober dropped me off, and I slept in the back of my car for a little bit. I wake up, I drive home, and I don't know if I fell asleep or they took my blood alcohol content. It was a 0.259, which is three times the legal limit. Now, mind you, I hadn't drank for about 4 hours, so God
Yeah.
only knows you know what I mean. So I hit a tree head on. Under 87.3% of people in the condition I was in when the paramedics arrived don't even make it alive to the hospital. So like the Acura MDX had that side airbag. So if my car doesn't have a flat tire, my head goes through that window. I'm not here having this conversation with you. You know what I mean? So that's that God works in mysterious ways, right? And where I think he's not there. And then so I had to be cut out of the car, and I was taken to one hospital, and then I did a lot of work. I was in a coma for a month. I woke up April 8th of the. I don't really remember any of April. I can come back to that. Why I remember that later on. But like that, my frontal lobe was messed up, which is like your memory, my short-term memory, which is back now, but that was all messed up. But I had to relearn how to walk, how to talk. I fractured a hip, so that was like, um, and the hardest thing was like with how my frontal lobe was messed up. The language, like it was hard for me to talk. Like I knew this was like a card, but I couldn't say card. So that took a while to come back. And most people are like, that's your sober date. Nope, cutting, baffling, powerful, right? So I didn't, I relearned all that stuff, right? So now, mind you, I'm thinking I'm not hurting anybody. I'm only hurting myself. So my family had to get a call and come to the hospital and see me on tubes, like a breathing tube, a feeding tube. Basically, they told him, like, we know he's going to wake up because, like, the brain activity in my head was high. And, like, that's how they know you're going to wake up from a coma or not. But we don't know what he's going to be when he wakes up. So, again, it's like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't imagine what my family was going through at that time. You know what I mean? And the reason why I said like I remembered it, so there's actually a documentary on HBO called Coma. JFK, the hospital in Woodbridge, New Jersey. It's like one of the best hospitals in the world for brain injuries, and they did a documentary on it. And the documentary was in 2005. I was there in 2004, so I missed out on my Hollywood moment. You know what I mean? But the funny part is, once I watched that, I remembered everything. I didn't know it until I saw it. Once I saw it, I was like, holy shit, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that. It was freaky. So DUI, I don't know how the laws are in California, but here in Jersey, when you get a DUI, you got to go to AA. You got to get cards, you know what I mean? So I go to AA, welcoming, caring. Hey, hang out. Listen, I don't, whatever you're dealing with, I don't need. Just give me those cards. You know what I mean? Like, so I went to meetings. I can tell you how the AA program doesn't work. You go late to a meeting, you don't get a sponsor, you don't get a home group, no step work. You sit in the back, you judge the hell out of the people that are talking, you get your card, and you walk out the door. It ain't gonna work. But again, I'm 23 years old. I'm like, I can't be an alcoholic. To me, the alcoholics to do. Now, mind you, I'd been thrown out of one college. I'm pretty much failing out of a community college that I just stopped going to. I mean, I'm working at a bar, which is a great bar, but it's really not, I'm not making a career out of it. So I really don't have the greatest life going on. But I'm sitting in AA judging these people, thinking like, are they? Who are they to tell me? You know what I mean? So there's the one line in the big book that says, go out and try some controlled drinking. I said, that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. Medically, I couldn't drink for a year. They told me, XYZ. So again, I don't know if that's the truth or not, or if my family told the doctors to tell me that, so I wouldn't drink for a year. Again, whatever. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to prove I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not going to drink for a year. I did nothing but put the drink down. I didn't work on me. I didn't do anything.
Right.
So I pick up in March, right? Now, mind you, I'm going to have some controlled drinking. Controlled drinking. I'm going to be a reasonable, like a gentleman now and drink. I haven't drank like a gentleman for my life, but I'm all of a sudden going to start now. The first night that I can drink, the first night, now mind you, I'm staying for a year, I'm going to control drinking. I go and buy a 750 milliliter bottle of Southern Comfort and a 30-pack of Budweiser.
Jeez.
Now, this is after a year of saying I'm going to have controlled drinking. I don't go buy a 6-pack and have 2. I buy a bottle and a 30-pack, and I'm off to the races. And it got exponentially worse. So mind you, now no one wants to drink with me anymore because of what they just saw what happened. So I'm kind of happy about that because now I can just leave me alone and let me drink.
No judge. Yep.
I go out, whatever. I'm working at this time. I'm working at Home Depot, which I was probably gonna get fired from in the near future. I go out, and there's one kid who I'm working with. He's like, "Hey, we're going for a couple drinks if you want to go." I'm like, "I'm going for 2 beers." Now, mind you, I was only going for 2 beers because I had a bottle back at my place.
Right.
Now, I had said when I started drinking again, I'm not going to drink and drive. That's it. I'm not going to do it again. I almost just died. It's a lot of money. I'm not going to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
That's out the window. So I go and I have 2 beers. I'm ready to go home. And the kid goes to me, "Hey, you stay. My ride left. If you stay, I'll pay for your tab." So I'm like, I'm staying now. So now I'm doing shots. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, whatever. I drive him home and I'm sitting outside of his apartment. And I'm like, I'm not going to take that road because it is cops are on that road. I'm going to take the back roads. Take the back roads, and I get pulled over. And honestly, I look back now, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because cop came. I grew up. I have law enforcement in my family, and I have friends who are cops, and I've always been nice to cops because, like, I knew, like, all right, I'm caught. I don't want to make it worse. You know what I mean? So, like, the cop came up. He's like, license, registration. I'm like, dude, just arrest me. I'm drunk. And he's like, no, dude. Take the test because if you deny it, it's worse. I'm like, all right, whatever. I can get out. So took the test, failed it. He put me in handcuffs, put me in the back seat. And honestly, I felt that peace one other time. And that's when I got to my first step 5. But I just knew it was over in the backseat of a cop car. I was like, I don't know where the hell I'm going. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but it's over. That moment. I spent the night in jail, whatever. It is what it is. I was drunk as hell, so I could sleep on the steel. It's whatever.
Yeah.
And I woke up and I went home and I told, and I didn't tell my family that day. I waited till all those lawyer letters started coming in the mail, and I, uh, I told my mom, and I was close with my mom that like, hey, I got my second DUI, and I said, but I got to stop drinking. Like, I got to go to rehab, you know. And through some connections, through my sister-in-law's uncle, he knew someone. I don't know if you ever heard of the Karen Foundation.
Well,
It's in Warnersville, Pennsylvania, which is like 3 hours from Philly. He knew a guy there. They set me up with an interview there. And this is another funny story. So, like, I have an interview at this rehab. And so I go out there, right? And I meet with a drug and alcohol counselor there. He's like, tell me your story, And he first told me his story. And that made me feel comfortable. Like, all right, well, this dude's cool. Like, I jive with what you're talking about, right? And I told him it was the first guy I was honest with. It was the first guy that I was truly honest with. And he's like, dude, I got a bed for you tonight. And I'm like, whoa, dude. I was just told that, like, this is an interview. Like, I'll come, but, So I went home and then I went back. I went back to, I went to treatment January 23rd of 2006. For me, like, two very important things happened that day. I'm walking in, and I'm a believer in like miracles and stuff like that. Just how it is. I either believe everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle. So like I'm about to walk into treatment. I'm 24 years old. Don't have two nickels to rub together. You know what I mean? Like I put my family through hell for years. You know what I mean? Selfish, arrogant, egotistical. You name it, I'm it. And I don't know why, but something just came over to me, and I looked up, and at that point, I really don't think I believed in God. Honestly, I can honestly say I don't think I did. But I just looked up and I just said, "Help me," and that was it. And to me, going back, it's the most important prayer I've ever said in my life. Was that one right there? And then it's funny. I walk in, hi Matt, blah, 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 blah. They hand me the footprints prayer, the footprints, and like I look back now and I'm like, dude. All those things we talked about, like we just said, like God's not here, He's not with me. Like He was carrying me the whole damn time. You know what I mean? But I wanted nothing to do with Him. And I mean, and in treatment, I did the hardest work I've ever done, honestly. But it was the most rewarding work I've ever done. Like I'll never forget my counselor Carl. I love that man. He got me to open up and talk about things that I wasn't willing to. You know, you know those things that I mentioned. The losses. Not good enough. This and that. And I'll be forever grateful for him. That man, Carl Andrews was his name. He no longer works there because I go back. I got to go back to the rehab this past summer and share my experience, strength, and hope, which was honestly one of the coolest things I've done in my life. While I was there, I worked on the relationship with my father. I worked on the relationship with my mother, my brother, my sister, all those things. My family, I'm forever grateful for them too because I'm a counselor now, and I know a lot of families that aren't involved. But like my family was like, they did a family education program. It was a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday was like Saturday and Sunday was just like the family. They learned about the disease of addiction and learned agency, and then Monday and Tuesday we did stuff together. And they were very involved in it. And I can still I laugh about this thing now, and it's something that's good. Like so, I've been on, we'll say like an 8-year run, 16 to 24, with a year off, but like it was like 8 years of hell for my family, right? So like it was the first time my father, who loved the man, very supportive of me, great childhood, was there, was heavily involved in my life, but he felt like he could say how he felt, and he like lit into me. I mean, it was just like, again, justified, taking nothing from him. But when like I got it, I'm like, oh, I'm like, but Dad, I looked him dead in the eye, and I was like, Dad, I'm president of the rehab because they made me president while I was there. But that was like the only thing I'd gone for me in my life right there. He just let, I mean, if my counselor wasn't there, I would have been walking out of there like with a couple broken arms or something like that, you know? But, you know, it was phenomenal for my family and, you know, for them to, you know, because like growing up, all I got was, you know, the DARE program. And really wasn't really talked about that much. And you know, it's through no fault anyone's fault. Like I think I would have, even if you told me, like if you show, I think this is just for me. Like if you sat me down at 16 and showed me the movie of what would be for my life if I continued down this path, I was so screwed up in the head that I'd have been like, no, 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 that ain't me. I'll prove you wrong, you know? So I think I was born an alcoholic, you know, for me, for my coping mechanisms were like alcohol was my solution. While I was in treatment, you know, I did that work and my family was involved. I'm very grateful for that. But we went out in my rehab. If you were like good, like doing all your stuff, you got to go to an outside meeting. Like you got to go to an AA meeting on the outside. And the key thing there was you got real coffee. So that was like, yo, that was like, and I'll never forget. I went to a meeting, and at the meeting, they were like, "Hey, does anybody, you know, anybody celebrate?" And like, I raised my hand, and I got a 24-hour coin, and like, I still have all my coins now, but like that coin it'll be forever my favorite coin for like all that stuff we just talked about. You know, the not good enough, the coma, the getting kicked out of college, the fights, what I did to my family, blah blah, like that 24-hour coin. Why are you guys fighting? That was like the hardest 24-hour coin I've ever got, and I will hold that, you know, right, you know, in my heart. There's a guy who I work with. He said the hardest part about recovery, the hardest thing about sobriety is 18 inches. You got to get it from here to here, you know, and I got it in my heart. But like something we talked about while I was in treatment, I started praying again. And to me, that's the most important thing for me is my spirituality to my life. You know, I started praying and started going back to church because they did church on Sundays. And, you know, I would call my, you know, my family and I'd keep them updated while I was in treatment. You know, like my family was taking my calls now. And, you know, when I'll never I'll forget this too. Like, so I went to rehab in January. So in Jersey, it's not that warm in January, right? So I'm like, I'm hoping, I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. You know, it's my first time in treatment. My counselor's going to send me to Florida to like the extended care program. I'm going to get into a sober house. I'm going to, you know, that's where I'm going to be going. So I said, hey, Carl, we got to go over my aftercare plan. You know, what's going on? So he's like, Matt, you're going home. What do you mean I'm going home? He's like, your family is so supportive of you. Like you're gonna go home. You're gonna work the AA program. You're gonna live with your family. And I'm like, this. I'm like, for the first time in my life, I'm doing good, and I'm getting sent somewhere where I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to go back to cold Jersey, whatever. But I'll never forget Carl. Like the day before, right before I left, Carl came to me and he said to me, he said, Matt, I truly, truly believe if you work the AA program, you will stay sober. There's not a doubt in my mind. Just you have to work it, you know. He's like, and you have to get a meeting the day you get home. Like, don't do this, don't do that. We're gonna figure it out. And me and him, we planned my aftercare. Like afterwards, I came home from treatment. You know, I picked up. Like I said, I did a lot of work with my family. But I've worked on my relationship with me there. That was like the biggest thing. And, you know, I came home and I got involved. I got involved in AA. You know, I went and I got a sponsor. You know, I got a home group. And to me, honestly, I could still do this going. Like I got out of rehab on a Monday, Thursday. State of New Jersey took my license for 2 years for my DUI. And that was the best thing to happen to me. You know, I went back to work. I was working at Home Depot, and they actually thought they were like, "Dude, you're such a good worker. Like, what the hell?" I'm like, "I wasn't before." They're like, "No, dude, you're never here or anything like that." You know, but I went to I went I went to school for broadcast when I first got, because I played sports growing up. I played basketball, baseball. And, it was decent. You know, it was pretty good. You know, but I wasn't pro level. I wasn't going to go there. But I worked in sports when I got sober, and I worked for the Mets television station, SMI. So I was like on there off air. I did stuff for that, and did stuff for Major League Baseball for MLB.com. And then I actually got laid off by the Mets because of the Madoff scandal. Because Bernie Madoff robbed the Mets, and I was laid off. But that was my thing. Like, I always thought about being a counselor because of Carl. Like, I went in broken, a shell of a person. You know what I mean? Like, I hated myself. Like, I did. And Carl, like, just molded me into something. But Carl will tell you, Matt, you did all the work. But, like, he showed me the road. Like, he lit the light and supported me down. So, like, I wanted to give that back to someone. And that's what I thought about. Again, my mom was like, hey, listen, you always wanted to work in sports. Why don't you go to school for that? And like, today I don't have that what if. I did that, loved it. It was good. But, like, this is more of a career that I'm in now. I went to back to school. I got my certifications. So I started working in the drug and alcohol field in 2010 as a tech. Then I went to school, got my certifications, and I've been a counselor since 2014. I just got my bachelor's degree last June, and I actually just finished my first year in my master's program. It's interesting, man. Like I said, I never believed in myself. I never did that, but like I got my grades. I got a 3.8 this semester. What?
There's no education but self-education, right? And they say, right, you want to make God laugh, make a plan, right?
Yeah.
You've given me a lot to digest. I'm sitting here making notes. Going into rehab, right? Because I've had other guests that have said, when you're done, right?
Yeah.
And there is a surrender. I walked in to my rehab willfully, and everybody jokes that I was like the most sober looking guy that walked into rehab they've ever met. Because I was like, I was done.
Yeah.
That was it. But there is something to be said about, the empathy and the understanding that you get from these counselors, because most of them have been there.
Yeah.
And it's so reassuring, right? You're not being guilted and shamed to death. You're not getting ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
But your dad is interesting, because I had a dad like that too, that, at some point you got to put your big boy pants on, right? And you're going to be a man. You're going to do what's required of you, be responsible and stuff. But, the self-care, right? You finally got a chance to take care of yourself, right? And to truly, work on yourself. And I think, that getting involved is, it is a payback to those that have all helped you. But there's also just this full circle understanding, right, of what it's like to see both sides of the coin of addiction. Right? And there's a blessing in that, right? Because people, if you've never seen the other side of the coin, right, there's so much fear. There's so much guilt and shame. There's so much, I'm going to get found out. I'm going to be labeled the rest of my life. But when you're on the other side, you know what? It's like, this is a disease. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. One thing that's interesting too is that having a supportive family is so key. But there's also, if they are all normies, right, it's difficult for them to understand, because most of the time they just sit there and go, well, just quit, right? Just quit. What's wrong? Why can't you just quit? And I think that there's something powerful that I think it's Al-Anon that says there's 3 things that family of addicts need to understand: is that 1, they can't cure it; number 2, they can't control it; and number 3, they didn't cause it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but my immediate family, my wife and kids and stuff, they went to the family education program. And my mother, although she had been around it in her youth, was around it with my biological father, just severe addiction, right? When I first, was learning about what this was, right, she, on the front end, was like, what are you going to be able to teach me that I don't already know for the last 50, 60 years living my life, right? And so there was a little bit of a narrow-mindedness about it. And yet, because of the fact that I obviously had to address mental health issues as well in rehab, that, she had such a hard time with seeing this version of me, because this is a truly clean and sober version that's stable. And it was almost like she had lost Dustin in a sense. She had lost that person, and she was like just afraid. She didn't know who I was anymore. And she actually had a friend of hers that was in addiction, that was dealing with addiction and had come out of it, and basically had to tell my mother, she goes, hey, that dust is dead and gone. He's never to be found again. And for however long that he lived that life and that type of person that he portrayed in the world, he goes, it's no longer going to exist, and that's a good thing. So there's definitely some sometimes blunt realities for those around us that love us, that because again, when the alcohol's flowing, when the weed's getting smoked, there's an inhibition that drops. There's party time, happy go lucky, but it also comes with the neuroticism and the anxiety and the depression and all those other things, right? That sometimes we rely upon those closest around us to help us through it, so they feel more needed and wanted, right? Whereas when we become stable, we don't have those same types of crises that happen in our life on a daily basis, from withdrawals and chemical imbalance. And I think that there's there are so many different ways in which a family member tries to approach an addict, right? And it's scary for them, right? Because in our own trauma, right, we transfer that trauma to them, right? I mean, we didn't end up cross into a tree and have all of our pain and all of our addiction basically spill over into those that we love and have them being worried messes with us, right? But yeah, it's so you've been clean for quite some time now, young man.
Yeah.
You've been so you're basically 18 years? 18 years. That's impressive, man. Good for you, man. Good for you.
One day at a time.
That's it, right? That's it.
And
it's
actually,
not a sentence. It's a life sentence. It's a beautiful thing, right?
And it's interesting, two things that I want to say that, like, I think they were really, really cool things that, like I said earlier, that I had come back to, right? So my friend that died, right? I was close with him. But there's another friend of mine who was like best friends with him, right? So like social media, like both of them were Chris, Chris, right? So Chris, who's alive, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I tell him the story, like, just so like, I prayed for Chris for quite some time. I think through my addiction, he's become my guardian angel, of down on me, and help me out. He's like, I want to fuck your mom. He's like, hey, she's not. I'll reach out here. So like I reached out to her on Facebook, and then me and her went out to dinner, and I got to tell her that, and like that was just like such a beautiful moment. You know what I mean? Like we just had dinner. Because the only time I saw her, so, I saw her when we were 18 or 17 at the funeral, and then fast forward, I was about 5 years sober, so 12 years later. You know what I mean? And like she told me something where she said, like, Matt, you don't know how much that means to me that someone still talks to my son, prays for my son. And to me, that's just like, again, we don't know what we're doing. Right? Like, but that's like putting the good out there, right? And like that was, cool. She came to one of my anniversaries one year, and it's really cool. And another thing, like, my first DUI, I got a ticket, whatever, the cops numbers on the badge number or something. I got to go to that precinct, meet him, and thank him for, and what he did, which was a really cool moment too. And then, fast forward, right? A couple years later, I get into an car accident. That's not my fault, right? That's really not my fault, whatever. Cop comes, she's like, let's call the police, Cop comes, interviews his, takes her story, takes, my story, and he's like, dude, you're familiar, but why are you familiar? And he goes to his car, comes back, he's like, holy, you're the dude that came and thanked me. He said, go home, I got this.
Nice. Yeah. Like little nuggets in life, right, that we never know, right? And I think that's the beauty of of staying involved, right? You don't know what the one thing that you say to somebody that helps them register, helps them click, but just also recognize, it's a random act of kindness, and it's an appreciation for each other in this world. As insignificant sometimes as it is, it seems, right? It has massive issues. You talked a little bit, obviously just in talking about like the grief, right? One of the things that happened to me in rehab was, I think I was like 2 weeks into it, and I had vivid dreams about my father who I had lost. And And I woke up and I was just like gushing, like I was hyperventilating. I was bawling so bad, and I brought myself together. And I literally, like 5 minutes after that, I basically, I walked over to a counselor and I just basically buckled again. And it was like all this repressed grief that this trauma that I never was able to process, right? It's pain, right? And that's the one thing that sobriety does, right? Is that, of course, life isn't always roses, right? But the thing about it is that in sobriety, you get to process things in a natural way, right? And you process them as you should, right? You can't live a lie from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a blessing, right? I mean, we're put on this earth also to feel it all, feel all the feels, right? The
Mm-hmm.
good and the bad. But and I think that that's important because there are a lot of people that are in so much pain and they're like, I can't process it. I don't have the time to manage it. I can't. The world doesn't stop. So I'm gonna repress it, right? And it ain't going anywhere until you're ready to deal with it. And sometimes it's like a no.
Yeah.
Do you have any triggers, any struggles in your 18 years? Any things that really set you off that make you crave?
I mean, I can tell you one of the hardest things for me, as you're talking about this, right? I was so, I mean, when I first came out, yeah, it's the wind blowing the wrong way. I wanted to drink. You know what I mean? Because it's like all I knew. You know what I mean? It was just good day drink, bad day drink, best drink, it's the best drink. But like for me, it was getting involved. I got involved and listen, and I can tell you, when I worked, this is one of the things that comes back, right? So I worked up in Manhattan, and I would take the bus, right? So I worked on, you've heard of Radio City Music Hall, right? The TEC I worked at, which is right across the street from Radio City Music Hall. That's 51st. The bus, I was on 22nd. So I would see a show at, it usually was last around 1:30, 2 in the morning. I'm walking down the East Ave. What the hell do you think's going on in Manhattan at 1:30, 2 in the morning? You know what I mean? Guy in that exit, Matt called me. I walk you through it, and it's just on the phone. Just doing that, right? So that was tough. And I seriously close with up there while I was working up there with everybody knows Donald Strawberry, right? One of us, right? He talked about it, and like he was cool as hell with me because I went into him and I was doing this and that. Figure like, hey, me and him had a bond because of what we had been through.
Right.
But like for me, just being connected to AA, well, for me, my spiritual part, I'm right spiritually, I'm good. I can do anything, right? But two, one of the things, I mean, I got sober at a young age. I got sober at 24. Like, I only drank at one wedding. I'm drinking at my brother's wedding. He's 4 years older. I was 21. He got married at 25. I got his age, but every other wedding I went to, I was sober before. And honestly, thankfully I went to one early. Probably wouldn't suggest that for people. Like, I got some in January, I went to one July. Since they were all good friends of mine, knew I was sober, they weren't going to pressure me. I had a way out. I had a whole plan. AA taught me with why it's just like sailing. If I don't do like I got sober too. I'm lucky, which I really was up for those little meetings from me, like half hour inmates that were all younger kids in their 20s. So like we would go out and do things. We would go. This one of the meetings was 10 p.m. on a Friday. So like there, my Friday nights are good. Like I'll get to them early, hang out with them. I got around people, so guy who's 70s and every year. I'm like, first of all, that's impossible. You know what I mean? So it's like I got involved with them, and one of the hardest things is tattoo on my arm. Like I could still remember the phone call. One of my friends committed suicide, and that was tough. That was tough, real tough. Because part of me feel like I failed him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm supposed to catch this, right? I'm a counselor. I'm sober. I'm supposed to see this. You know what I mean? And it hurt. It still hurts to this day. But I did a lot of work with my sponsor. My sponsor, I mean, the stuff he got me through with that was one of the hardest parts, and that was at 8 years sober, and that was hard because, like, I was kind of sheltered in the beginning, you know what I mean? Like, they took my license, I'm good, so I'm really not going anywhere. I lived at home with my family. Again, very thankful, grateful for that. But, like, me, I just jumped in. I jumped in. But my thing, too, is, like, I looked at my recovery like I do my addiction. And again, it's everyone's choice. If you want to do this, you don't want to do this, up to you. I never made a decision on something until I tried it. Like, hey, Matt, try this, try this, try that. All right, I'll try this drug. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say yes or no until I did it once or twice or 3 or 4 or 10, 20 times. If people suggest it for me in AA, if people suggest me for individual counseling, in group counseling, I'm going to try it. You know what I mean? I try it before I judge it. That's the most important thing with my recovery now. And I stated, like, I came in early and I said I'm going to do these 12 steps and then I'm out. I'm out. I'm not going to be one of those dudes that's hanging around still, because when I came in, I was 24. I was like hanging around in his 30s and his 40s. It's not going to be me. I'm going to get what I need and I'm out. But, for me, I truly believe that, like, once I did like a real, like, step 3, like real for me, like, it changed. There was that flip and then you're making that agreement to go through the next, 4 through 12. I go to a couple meetings a week now. I usually go to 3 and I'm good. Right now I got a nice balance. This year was a big year for me. I graduated college, I got married, and we actually purchased our first place. Like, I'm an owner.
They focus.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wrecked result of my sobriety. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I never understood where people are like, oh, you got to keep your sobriety first. No. I got to keep my family first, my school first, my work first. But then you stick around, you're like, none of that's there if I'm not sober, man. To me, it's all gone. Like, and to me, and again, it's a personal opinion. Like, I'm not afraid of alcohol so much. I don't phrase this the right way. I'm afraid of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come with alcohol. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go back to, like, fuck, I woke up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be pissed that I woke up. And that's where, like, I'm a counselor now, but, like, I think everyone should go to individual counseling. I think individual counseling is phenomenal. Like, I took myself in with a good counselor now. Like, this dude's gonna have to take me out and bury me to get rid of me. I love this dude. I mean, I meet with him twice a month now, and to me, it's just like, because, like I said, I love AA, but some things are I need more help sometimes in AA. And to me, individual counseling so, like, my advice to anyone who gets sober and it took a while is just, like, take it piecemeal, man. Just take it piecemeal. Like, we didn't become alcoholics and addicts overnight. I'm not gonna get everything else overnight, and like,
Be patient.
right now, yeah, like, right now I have a life beyond my wildest dreams, and, like, but when I left treatment back in 06 and 07, like, a life beyond my wildest dreams is I got a beach house on Malibu, and I got 450 million in the bank. A life beyond my wildest dreams now is, like, I have a key to my parents' house and I can go there wherever I want. You know what I mean? I'm in a healthy, happy, awesome marriage. I'm in love with a wonderful woman who I love and she loves me, and like, that's a life beyond my wildest dream. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all those things, like the little things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a college graduate. I'm on a master's program, and, like, I like going to school. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like I joke when I celebrate, I'm like, they give me keys to get out of a rehab now. You know what I mean?
Before they wouldn't let me leave, now they let me go whenever I want.
Yeah, exactly. Now I can come and go. I can get here early. I can leave late.
Wow.
But it's just like, to me, the life beyond my wildest dreams is truly changed. Where it's like, do I like everything I do? No, but I do love myself now, and that's something I never thought I'd be able to say. You know what I mean?
No, that's awesome, man. It's a great story. You had said something a little bit ago just about the grief and the feeling of responsibility because your friend that you lost to suicide, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I thought of is, like, I mean, on the flip side, right? Imagine what your parents would have felt if you didn't make it through that car accident.
Yeah, right.
In the same degree, right? They would have probably thought the same way. What did we do?
Hmm.
What did we miss?
Hmm.
What word? And I think that's part of the grieving process, right?
Hmm.
And so it's good. It's good, to having a bleeding heart. We have to be careful with, right? Because people are still responsible for themselves, right? Just as much
Hmm.
as we have
Hmm.
to be responsible for ourselves, doing that, we had an issue
Hmm.
to seek help, right? And so, there's trying to keep a healthy arm's length, and it's difficult, right? Because if you love people and you want to see the best for people, and you know what the dumps feels like, and what's the victories feel like, right? You want to share that, right? You want people to come on that side, right?
Hmm.
But it is heartbreaking. So yeah, no, I can definitely empathize with you on that. Dude, we've covered a lot, man. I'm sitting here going through my questions, and I'm like, I mean, I guess if you had to give somebody a 30-second elevator pitch, okay, in 30 seconds, right? You saw this guy was destitute, was male or female, was destitute, was like, I need help, man. I need help. I've got myself an addiction problem. It's run away from me. I'm in the verge of losing my wife, my family, my kids, my job. I've got this addiction's done consumed my life. What are you gonna say to him?
Change is possible. I mean, I see it all the time, right? Like, I'm sure you see it, right? Like, I mean, you see that light go off in someone's eyes, and it's just like, man, that's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing, Like, and if you don't believe change is possible, follow me. You can find it, Like, we can lead you in the right direction. You got to do the work, but change is like, trust me. When I walked into treatment, if you would have told me the life I'm living now, I would have bet. I probably had about $24 in my bank account, but I would have bet all of it that, yeah, there's no way in hell any of that's happening. You know what I mean? Just that one saying, wait till the miracle happens, right? And to me, I believe like any alcoholic or addict that goes to bed and is sober, miracle, bang, done, it's over, right? And then tomorrow I wake up, I'm sober, another miracle, right? And what am I going to do? We're all given 24 hours, right? Like, what, honestly, one of the, like, it's sad that he died, but like one of the best books I ever read, like for me, it's all about like mindset, right? Like Mamba Mentality, Kobe's thing. That was a great book, that was a great book. But I only get that way by who I'm around. Like, I don't know who said it, but it's like, you know, you want to, your future is based on who you're hanging out with, right? And that's, if I'm hanging out with, and I, and it's funny too, because, one of my, it's awesome that, one of my biggest drinking buddies is in the rooms now over, he's got some time, and, I see him, and it's just funny that I'm like, dude, who would have, like, we see each other at 7:30 on a men's meeting on Sundays, and we're like, who the hell would have thought we'd be here? You know what I mean? And that's what with the newcomer, the person who's struggling, like, because too, like I said, I go to individual counseling. Like, just because I put the drink down doesn't mean everything's all right. It's I got some stuff going on, right? Like, like for me, my biggest thing was it took a while, but like I said, I'm worked out the way it was supposed to. God's always got a plan, right? Like, I never thought I'd find a healthy relationship, but it when I was ready,
Yeah.
it happened. And
Starting with the healthy relationship with yourself, right? And that was all that it is, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I'm still involved with my IOP. So I went through a 30-day, then I went into an IOP for like 12
Okay.
months. I did like 9 hours a week, and it was something that I needed to do because, again, that whole starting and going into this rehabilitation, I was so gung ho, and I was like, yes, 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 and then getting home, and it was like, oh shit, now what, right? Because I used to have all this time that I had now out of my hands, right? I was usually doing, using, or in a state of something, right? So now I'm basically in an aftercare program. Both
Okay.
counselors that I'm that part of that, and it's really just to check in, right? And I think it's so important that one of the things that I personally find can be intimidating for somebody that's trying to get people to on the same wavelength as what they're experiencing, right? And trying to hear the similar stories is that, all the anonymous groups have people of different levels, right? And and the rawness of it all, I think it can change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unless somebody vocalizes it, that's still in that raw stage, right? It's difficult to remember what that felt like, right? Because you're in such a better place, right? A better state time on it. So I think getting in with a community who's going through treatment at the same time as you are, right? That's got the same amount of sober days or close to, right? I think it's powerful, right? Because you're each other's support network, right? And just trying to figure out this whole new reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with my the self-care plan, the instructor actually lets people that are still in IOP, that are newbies, basically sit in and listen to us talk amongst ourselves. It's really just a check-in for the self-care, right? It's just, hey, how's the week? What's going on? Any triggers? Just we kind of just be us.
Mm-hmm.
We know about each other's lives, and so the IOP people are basically just sitting in the circle, just listening, right? And they hear things that resonate with them, right? That they never heard anybody talk like that before.
Mm-hmm.
There's one young man who I just met for the first time, and we let them speak if they want to, right? HIPAA rules, basically, they have to do it on their own, right? We can't, force them to talk, right? Because they're an IOP and we're an aftercare. But one of the kids, I think he's in his mid-20s, and he's talking about his weed and his alcohol use, right? And he's talking about just some of the neurotic realities of his life now, just in dealing with the weed use, right? Because, this whole legalization thing, I definitely had opinions before,
Yeah.
we have opinions now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the habit was long for me. It was a good couple decades. And he had said some things, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I think of it, so I know exactly how that is, right? And so I just ended up kind of talking to him a little bit, in our group. And then when I left, my counselor reached out to me. He goes, dude, you resonated with him so hard. He ended up coming up to me after class and was like, hey, what he said was so on the money with what I felt and experienced and everything. It was like uncanny, right? And I'm like, well, that's just it,
Yeah.
until you open up your mouth, you don't recognize it. And
Mm-hmm.
but there's definitely power in that, right? Because people realize at that point they're not alone, right? It gives them hope. Gives them hope.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, in our addictions, we're like, nobody understands me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
this way, and you just don't get what I've been through, or it's like, we get it, brother.
Yeah.
We get it, sister.
Yeah.
No, we know
Yeah.
it sucks.
Mm-hmm. Trust me, I hate it. Yep.
Yeah. So, well, shoot, Matt. You have anything else you want to add tonight, bud?
I mean, for like my biggest thing is like just for the person to realize that they are worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel that way coming in, and I still struggle with that at times, right? It is what it is, right? Like, there are people that care, right? And to me, I just got to be around those people. It's something where life's gonna happen. Like the old Ferris Bueller line, life moves pretty fast. If you don't see what it is, I forget what it is.
Yeah.
Camera. If I died in that car accident, or if I died in any other sort of thing, like I'm sure you've got numerous ones too. Like anyone who's interviews, they're like, life's still gonna happen, right? It's the world's not gonna stop because I'm not here, which whatever. But and like be an active participant in your life, and that's what it is now. Like for me, I truly love my life. I don't love every day, trust me. I get pissed off, I get upset, I get depressed, I get anxious.
Right.
But in the big scheme of things, life is pretty awesome. You know what I mean? I got a couple books I got to read because actually, me and my wife were actually planning. We just booked our honeymoon. We're going to Iceland in July.
Fun.
Yeah, and like we've gone a bunch of places. Like I've been up to Boston. I've been down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I was out. I did California when I was single. I did San Diego, LA, San Fran. I did that stuff.
I'm just outside of San Francisco, about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
San Francisco is a beautiful city, but it's expensive as hell. It's like everything these days. But like that, my biggest thing is for people, whether because there's that's to me the biggest misconception when I came in was I'm going to put the drink down and everything's going to be okay, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You know what I mean? Life's going to happen, and for me, like I need that support. I need that, I meditate each day. I'm working on getting into yoga. I haven't gotten it yet. Working on it. It's That's the biggest thing is if you don't think you're worth it, hang around people like us, and you'll get that way. You know that's to me, because I talk about like my friend who like committed suicide. You know, addiction is just, it's suicide on an installment plan.
Oh,
To me, that's like the biggest thing for me. I have to take care of me, and I gotta watch how I talk, how I do. Like, you know, and it's interesting too. Like, people say, like, you know, you don't ask me if I'm sober. Ask my wife. Ask my mother. You know, ask my father. They'll tell you. But it doesn't happen overnight. And to me, like I look at, like, I played sports like my whole life. Well, I can't say my life, but growing up, played sports and loved sports. You know what I mean? And I got better by putting in the work. You know, like I got better by, like,
yeah.
you know, I would go out, I'd run, you know, I'd go to the weight room, I'd lift this, I'd lift that, you know, take batting practice, you know, learn this, learn that. And that's how I look at like my recovery. I have to put the practice in to get better. And today, honestly, it doesn't take much. Like, you know what I'm saying? I get up, I say some prayers, go through my day. Like, to me, I have conscious contact with God throughout the day. So that you know, that's what it is. But, you know, I go to a couple meetings here and there. You know, I do some meditation throughout the day.
Yeah.
I read a book here and there.
Yeah.
It's not, you know.
Yeah, sobriety isn't shit. I can't drink now for the rest of my life. I can't use now for the rest of my life. It's not that. It's like,
No.
because I mean, again, when you think about it, it's like all those things that you used to do in your life, and now you just ended up just becoming drunk, and nothing else had any meaning anymore. And
No.
and now with all this time back in your life, and the clarity, you get to live life fuller than a lot of people who've never had an addiction issue. I mean, sometimes it occurs, but I mean, a lot of it is that you're ever present now. You're ever present. Life's that much. It's full. So,
And like something like to me, the most important thing, like my mom and my dad, they get to sleep tonight, right?
yeah.
They're not worried about like what's gonna like a phone call or this or that, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then when I call them, like, you know, I just have conversation. Like, I was, you know, I got this weekend, took my mother, me and my wife took, you know, my mom and dad, we went out to dinner on Saturday night for Mother's Day. You know what I mean? And it was just like, you know, that's just like the little things, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I called, you know, like, for me, I'm like the exact opposite of a type A personality, but my wife is a type A personality, so it's good, you know what I mean? But like, so we plan, like, we're like, okay, we're gonna go out with her mom on Mother's Day, because we were getting together with her sister and, you know, their side of the family, so we were going out. So I called my brother and my sister like a couple weeks, and I was like, hey, just so you know, you guys are more than welcome to come, but like, I'm being caring, because they're obviously gonna want to do something. It's their mom too, you know what I mean? Like, and that's something I never would have done in the past. You know what I mean? Where it's like, call 3 weeks in advance and tell them what you're doing. What? You know? But
Matt, I'm going to steal some of your good quotes, man. I'm going to shamelessly steal and post it all over for the world to see.
go right ahead.
I'll make sure I tag you when I do it.
Thanks.
But hey, I appreciate this time with you. It's a pleasure to finally actually meet you, albeit we're virtual. Yeah. We're here, and that's the power of the internet, the positive power of social media.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
But thank you, and continued success to you, and we'll definitely be in touch, okay?
You as well, man. I really appreciate it. Anything you need, I'm always here. Like, I love this.
I appreciate you. Keep up the great work with counseling, man. And good luck on the masters, man. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.